look at different ways to diversify your revenue streams.
Sustainability, I think, depends on how you are not greedy in how you grow.
Have merchant mentality. If you're putting something in the bag and it is something that need not put in a bag, ask the customer.
So moving on to the second phase of the podcast, which is personal finance for entrepreneurs. Once again, my first question is for Shane. Entrepreneurs deal with a lot of the unknown, it's a lot of trial and error, and there are a lot of challenges that they face. From a personal financial management point of view, what are the ways that they can navigate these challenges? Do you have a few tips for them?
So, being an entrepreneur, working for yourself can be exciting as well as very challenging, especially when times get tough. And no business, big or small, is sort of exempt from this. Whether it's a multi-billion-dollar business or whether you're just a startup, the economic cycles affect everyone in the same way. So, if I was to give out a couple of tips, first tip would be to maybe again have a proper plan, a detailed business plan. Okay. This is just to make sure that you have your next maybe 3 years or 5 years mapped out, so you know exactly what type of requirements you're going to have, whether it's expansion, whether it's new investments, maybe it's expanding your inventory, your product portfolio, maybe investing in staff. All of this, obviously costs money. So rather than, as opposed to, for example, starting up and finding, halfway through that you need this much of money to, go in for expansion. So it's very important to sort of have a plan upfront, so that you have a very good idea. And this plan is obviously like changing always. It's not going to, maybe if it's a 3-year plan as when you start, maybe after a year on, you'll have to change the plan entirely. But it's just the sort of habit of having a detailed plan. And this involves obviously, looking at your target customer base, maybe your competition, and obviously numbers as well. Maybe second tip I would say is to manage your cash flows effectively. So this involves talking to your suppliers, getting good prices, getting favorable credit terms, and also getting prompt payments from your customers. Obviously, customers on the other hand will always try to delay payments, but you have to maybe try innovative things, maybe offer some sort of discount for early payment.
It's those intangibles that you need to work on when it comes.
Yeah. So, there are, different things that you can do, offer some sort of incentive to get them to sort of pay earlier, some sort of discount, some sort of other incentive benefits. Next tip again, similar to personal finance, it would be to have an emergency fund. Okay. So I think a lot of small businesses would be able to relate that, especially when maybe COVID came around or during recession, you have to be able to manage your day-to-day operations during a tough time for a couple of months. So this, I would say, ideally maybe 3 to 6 months of your business day-to-day running expense, your rent, your salaries, your utilities, things like that, so that you can cover them for a period of 3 to 6 months. This will help you to sort of make sure that you survive during those rough patches, so that you can, come up stronger when things improve. One more tip would be to stay lean. Sorry, this is one of the most important things when it comes to startups and small businesses, because unlike a big business, a small entity would be able to sort of adapt to things faster. And the reason that they're able to do that is because they have, very few staff. you know, and
Scale-based.
lean
Yeah.
organization. So you don't have layers and layers in between. You don't need to get corporate approval to make decisions. There's less red tape. So staying lean also, you know, really helps you to sort of stay on your feet. Finally, I would say maybe have multiple revenue streams. This is to make sure that in case, you know, there is a problem with one product or one market, so that you're not completely dependent on that. So maybe if you have product, for example, if it's a cafe, maybe rather than if you're currently targeting brunch, maybe you open up for dinner as well. So, you know, when one thing comes down, the other will pick up. Same way in terms of markets. So you can have, maybe if you're currently targeting wholesale, maybe you have some sort of retail market, maybe online. You know, just look at different ways to diversify your revenue streams.
Thanks. Do you all have anything to add to what Shane said?
Yeah, one of the good points you mentioned was the fact that you have multiple revenue streams. So you brought the example of a restaurant. So if you are an exporter, or if you're selling a product, and if your product is targeted towards a certain, whether it's a certain gender or a certain category, you create a similar line targeted towards a different audience, so that you're not dependent on one. So in terms of, if you take tea as an export, for example, if you're exporting tea to the Middle East, you try and develop a product that is suitable for Spanish market, for example. So you create a product with English and Spanish text, and you have something now that you can cater to a different market altogether. So you're not focused just on one. So if something happens in the Middle East, some new law passes by, or new tax comes into imports to the Middle East, you always have that other one also. So it's similar to the cafe. You know, you have other avenues to diversified markets.
I'm sure you have experience with working with Hebrew's Cafe, to what Shane said.
Yes, we haven't done, we're still operating like in terms of brunch, lunch and dinner, but I think there are different aspects that in terms of the products that we offer, that according to how changes happen, we kind of switch the menu a little bit. So yes, I can understand what you're...
And also moving the product is so important, the terms of whether you are selling a product, manufacturing and selling it. In the case of restaurant, having a happy hour on the most non-busiest time, which I assume is around 5 in the afternoon to 6 o'clock or 5 to 7. That's when 3 to 5 kind of thing. So we have a happy hour where your drinks are at a reduced price, or buy one get one free, and that dull period you're going to capitalize by getting some people coming. That keeps your staff busy, that keeps the cash flow coming. Maybe you're not so profitable as in the evening, but at least you get to bring in somebody that wouldn't come otherwise. In the case of in terms of a restaurant, I mean, that's like the happy hour is one of the best ones to diversify and get some people that are...
Acts as a promotion as well.
It's
acts as a promotion
as well. Acts as a promotion as well, and that might bring people that who wouldn't come otherwise.
Right.
And then when they come in, you've always won that customer after that, because you know your service is good, your food is good. So if it's a product that we're exporting or importing, that's the same concept. By giving it to another market, you've already captured the household of, you know, they've tasted the entire box of tea, which means, or tea or coffee or whatever. The entire box has been consumed, and by that time they're used to the taste, and the next time they go grocery shopping, they see that item, whether it's a food item or whatever it is, and they buy that thing because they're familiar with it. Now you got a second sale, and so on and so forth.
So can I just add a case study of EGB?
Yeah.
So EGB, I think from Gaston's day, would have been something that you would have when you were sick, right?
Yes.
Whereas they've rebranded entirely, you know.
But now brand loyalty, still people like EGB.
EGB, but now they had a huge rebranding campaign, I don't know, maybe about 10 years back, saying, you know, EGB network kamepa, no EGB, no food.
No food.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you drink when you're sick anymore, but it's something that goes with your
The
food.
purpose is...
Yeah.
And Jägermeister did the same thing.
Yes.
So Jägermeister was again sort of, I mean, it was developed as not as an alcohol, as a tonic. Sort of. Something that you drink when you're sick. But they did the Jaeger bomb, and again rebranded it entirely from something that you drink when you're sick into sort of a
evening
young,
capitalize more audience from the same product.
It's interesting. My next question is for Charisma. Within the span of your career, I'm sure you come across a bunch of successful individuals. So my question is, can you share one such example of an individual that managed their personal finances from, let's say, the start, and then you've seen them sustainably grow their business and themselves to a point where you would consider, or someone looking at them would consider them to be successful?
I think in this instance, I can think of my husband and how he started with Shandong. I remember in the beginning, like he wasn't sure whether he should take a loan from a bank or use his personal finances to start. I think at that point we went and spoke to someone that we both respected, and he said, you should start with what you have. And then, so when I look back at the past 8 years and how he has progressed, I think he's always had a sense of he has a good group of people around him in terms of his financial team. So they advise him on how it should be done and all that. So it depends on what your financial goals are and how you're led to. So I think it's, in order for you to have sustainable business growth, I think you need to really understand your market, really have a pulse of what people want, how, and be very quick to change. Like when COVID hit, we couldn't just sit and twiddle our thumbs and wait. We had to within 3 days we somehow got operational. We just ran the delivery model. So it depends on how quick you are to change to how the market changes. So this is how he managed. And third point is, you have to be reasonable in how you expect to grow, and not have, some people, they start and they want to make a lot of profit very quickly, and then they do it and then they crash. Sustainability, I think, depends on how you are not greedy in how you grow, and that there's some
process.
And there's righteousness, judiciousness in how you manage your business. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. You both touched on this point of caring and sort of diversifying and being a lean, mean machine. And you said how you did not borrow money, but you worked on with your capital. And Shane said to be lean as possible. And I think starting off, that's the best thing to do, to be lean. And I sometimes call it merchant mentality. If you take a small 7-Eleven or small kade, as you call it, store, the father would be the cashier.
Mom and pop
store. So the mother would be happy making breakfast and lunch, and then the mother would come and sit as a cashier. And in the meantime, if there's a milk delivery happening, and they would say, bring the milk delivery after 3 o'clock. Why? Because my son or daughter is coming home from school, and she would be able to offload and put it in the freezer or shelf or whatever. So mom and pop store mentality is called merchant mentality. Have merchant mentality. If you're putting something in a bag, and if it's something that need not put in a bag, ask the customer, do you need a bag with it? The customer might say no. That bag might be like half a penny, but it adds up over time. So have that merchant mentality. Same point, you said lean, and you gave the example of not borrowing a large amount of money initially or managing with your capital. So having that merchant mentality in business is going as a lean operation. Minimize your assets, purchases, like if you need a phone, you need certain things you need for the company, but you try to think like a merchant when it comes to that. In a store operation, you could easily hire a helper to come and a student or somebody to come and work for you part-time. Instead, what do these merchants do? Wait till milk delivery guy, don't deliver milk till 3 o'clock, because he knows my son's going to be home or daughter is going to be home. She's going to help me put them in the fridge or stock the shelves at that time. And if it comes earlier, they have to hire somebody to put that in the freezer. So just to add to the point that both of you brought up, yeah.
Yeah, I think sustainability means being relevant for a long period of time. I'm thinking back at some of the brands that are still there, you know. I think there is a way that you kind of operate, you know. There are some principles that you have to, and not, like I said, that, you know, where you get really greedy really quick to make the quick buck, and then after a while with the changes in the market you crash. But if you're sustainable and you follow these standards, then I think you can stay. And being relevant means understanding the customer and like I said, adapting very quickly to change. Yeah.
The faster you adapt to change, the faster you succeed. And change is difficult, but at the same time, if you
necessary.
learn to adapt to change, you have to change. Yeah.
To be sustainable. Yeah.
Yes. People get into a comfort zone at times, and for example, if you are a person who's producing a product, and as you call it, you're making great wraps, and you're good at making wraps. You're so comfortable making wraps, but then it comes to a pinwheel sandwich. It's something new to you. You're struggling to make it. You're trying to be shy, but if you adapt to it, and that's where the market is asking for, the faster you adapt to it, the more you succeed in that. Yeah.
Thank you. And the final question for this segment is for Gaston. The question is, how do you strike a balance between investing in your business and maintaining personal financial stability?
Oh, that's a good question. Easiest way is that if you're a business owner, you can decide of how much of an income you want to take as an executive or director or whatever. It has to be in line with what you are earning in the company. So, for example, you have staff. Now you've hired staff committing a certain salary or a wage. You first have to make sure that that is kept aside, because you have to pay them on time and what is promised and so on. Because they in return have pre-authorized payments going for their savings, they have car payments, maybe electricity or whatever, the payments, utilities and so on. So that is one thing you have to do. And as the person who's the leader, you should be the last person to take the money out from the account. At the same time, you should look at what revenue streams are coming, how much operating profit is left, how much you have to save in operating profit, and then decide how much of a payout you could take as a chairman. In a ship, they say, if the ship is sinking, the captain is the last person to get onto the lifeboat. So similarly, as a partner or director or entrepreneur, you should be the last person to take your earnings after you pay the staff, and the amount is dependent on how much operating profit are you putting in the bank. So if you're not putting any operating profit end of the day because of all your expenses, then you should be taking less than the staff, because you have already made that commitment to pay them. That's your first priority, and you should be taking whatever that's relevant to your company's goals.
So this is again why you need that business plan that I mentioned about. So you have some idea of what your requirements are for the next 12 months at least, and I mean, just like in a personal level, then you're working towards that, whether it's a new investment in IT system, or maybe a new delivery vehicle, or maybe a new member of staff. You have something in mind, and then you're working towards that, and then your sort of payout also is adjusted based on that.
Also, take the formula of GM. I'm taking GM because I'm from Canada. I live in Canada. GM makes fine cars. They are experts at making cars, but they don't make tires. They buy the tires from Goodyear, Michelin, or Firestone, or whoever. They buy the tires from somebody else. Their concept is, we know how to make cars, but we don't know how to make tires, so we'll buy the tires from you. So as a entrepreneur who's running a business should also think like that. If you have to buy a fleet of vehicles to deliver, or 2 vehicles to do your deliveries, that means you have to have a maintenance team to maintain these cars. You have to have mechanics, tools. But instead, you go to a rental place and say, look, I want to rent your vehicles for delivery, long-term rental. You negotiate something with them on long-term rental. So the maintenance is not yours. Everything is, it's almost like a dry lease or a wet lease or whatever. So take the concept of GM basically in your small business and try to be lean and spend less money as possible at the start instead of going grand scale. You start a business, you allocate, I need to get a car for myself to be going for meetings. That's not the concept you should have. Yeah.
The benefit there is also you can easily scale up or down as your business is growing.
Because you're starting at the
that level.
I mean, all you need to do is, get another vehicle on lease if things pick up. And same way, if there's a downturn, then you scrap some of those vehicles. So, I mean, you don't really have to bear that investment. And there's a significant difference in the cash flow that you require.
For example, in Canadian operations, we have a concept, we don't deliver products. Because when you go to deliver, there's so many costs involved in delivery. First of all, you have to pay the driver, the mileage, and there's waiting time, because when the driver goes to deliver, if the docks are occupied, driver has to sit and keep idling the truck for 1 hour, 2 hours, then suddenly you get a bill for waiting time. So in Canada, we adapted the concept of X works delivery. That means we'll prepare the goods you want to buy, a pallet or 2 pallets, but you come and pick it up, we don't deliver. But to give them an incentive, we have given them a special discount or special price because they are coming and picking up. Same concept as GM. GM makes cars but don't make tires. So we're not in transportation, we are in food distribution, importation and food distribution, not in transport. So transport, you handle it yourself. So that makes it, going back to that lean machine. So no tools, no maintenance, no going to mechanics, no fueling up diesel bills, waiting time, one less employee because it's nothing to do with you. Initially, at least,
Keeping costs low.
Keep the cost low as possible, merchant mentality. Yeah. Like even if you go on a business trip, if you have to rent a car at the airport, you go to the rent-a-car company and you say, what's the lowest price car you have for rent? And it's funny. Once I went to a place and I needed to go from from Montreal to Toronto one way. So when I asked the rent-a-car company how much it costs to rent a car and come back to Toronto one way, they asked me an exorbitant amount because it's one way. They have to get that car back to the other way. So I went to all 4 places and the price was too high. Then I went back to them and I rephrased the question. I said, do you have a car that needs to get dropped off in Toronto? They looked at me at once and said, yes, we do. And I said, how much? I should have asked, how much do you want to pay me? I didn't have the guts to ask that question. I said, how much do you want for that? And they quoted me a most ridiculous price. I was so happy. And they didn't really recognize me because airport car rentals are so busy. Yeah. Just a few minutes ago, they quoted me hundreds of dollars, and now they're talking $30 to plus fuel. So how you phrase it and how you negotiate. The concept is to be lean as possible. Now I could have gone to the car rental place and said, I want to rent the most exotic car they have and drive from Montreal to Toronto. It will still take me there in style. But there's that merchant mentality or the lean, keeping the overheads low kind of concept. By rephrasing the question, I saved the company money. I still got back to Toronto, still drove safely, new car, but just rephrase the question.
Thank you.